3 divisions of our corps under Jackson started on the march and moved south for a while, and we could hear skirmishing on our right. We could not imagine where we were going. We continued marching through fields and woods until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The day was hot and we marched fast, the men throwing away their overcoats and blankets. The other 2 divisions were in front of ours, and we began to think Jackson was on one of his flank movements, when one of his couriers came back and told our general to hurry up his command, as General Jackson was waiting for it to form in line. We knew then there was business on hand. As yet, not a gun had been fired. Everything was still and quiet. The troops were tired and moved about noiselessly. There were thick woods and underbrush on each side of the road, with an occasional field or farm. While resting in this position, a courier came to us, who was acquainted with some of our boys, and said we were in the rear of the Yankees, and that he could not tell how it was, but we would soon see the greatest move of the war. It was a running fight for 3 miles. We took them completely by surprise, and our 3 divisions got merged into one line of battle, all going forward at full speed. Our artillery did not have the time to unlimber and fire. They had to keep in a trot to keep up with the infantry. We ran through the enemy's camps where they were cooking supper. Tents were standing and camp kettles were on the fire full of meat. Our army did not halt until dark, when we came to the enemy's fortified position in and around Chancellorsville. Our officers then commenced forming the men in line and getting them in some kind of order, but the men kept up a terrible noise and confusion, hallooing for this regiment and that regiment until it seemed that there were not more than 3 or 4 of any regiment together. They were all mixed up in one confused mass. The enemy could hear us distinctly by the noise we made. They located us precisely and immediately opened on us with 20 pieces of artillery at short range and swept the woods and road with the most terrific and destructive shelling that we were subjected to during the war. If the enemy had known our situation and the good range they had on us and had kept it up, they would literally have torn us to pieces and nearly annihilated our corps that night. It was fortunate for us that they kept it up no longer, but it was fearful while it lasted. It was sometime during the shelling that General Jackson was wounded, which resulted in his death 1 week afterwards. The next morning, that road was covered for some distance with dead men torn to pieces, dead horses, cannon wheels, caissons overturned, and desolation generally. The battle that day was only a prelude to what was to follow on the next 2 days. General Hooker had massed his troops that night and strengthened his works and constructed new ones. The next morning, the 3rd of May, General Jeb Stuart took command of the corps and attacked the enemy on the flank, while Lee attacked in front. It was charge after charge, through thick underbrush, as the cry of "Remember Stonewall Jackson!" rang along the lines, until the works were gained, the enemy driven off the field and our troops in possession of his strongest position. But at what cost? The loss of life was fearful, some of our regiments being decimated. Our Pioneer Corps went to work burying the dead, when I witnessed the most horrible sight my eyes ever beheld. On the left of our line, where the Louisiana Brigade had fought the last evening of the battle, and where they drove the enemy about 1 mile through the woods, and then, in turn, fell back to their own position, the scene beggars description. It was the most sickening sight I saw during the war, and I wondered whether the American people were civilized or not, to butcher one another in that manner, and I came to the conclusion that we were barbarians, North and South alike.